Mother, Father God, our higher selves, our I am, our guides, our ancestors, our star brothers and sisters, our star family, our angels, archangels, and their divine counterparts, masters, ascended masters, and other Christed beings, Mother Gaia, the Elohim, the Dragon Collective, any other Christed beings that wish to participate both in this prayer and in the this podcast, to bring it into its highest offering to the collective frequency right now. For every soul that is called in this now and all nows, to help them, to aid them, to assist them, to connect with the truth of these words spoken through me, spoken through Larry, as we are both vessels of the divine, as each soul is that listens and is aligned and chooses to listen and walk through the voice of their heart, which is God speaking through every soul. Today we speak of sensitivity, which is the new, and sensitivity is the way to connect with more and more and more realms of existence, those that go within, those that go without, those that go in between. At every layer of existence, every timeline, every dimension, every being of every frequency is included in the sensitivity. All the past, all the futures, as much as each soul can hold and chooses to allow. And we ask for the purest guidance, the most succinct words, phrasing in this now that will serve the collective. And we bless every soul that chooses this journey, that is in this journey within themselves, which is also without themselves, serving the external far more than they realize. We are grateful for your attention, for your presence in this now. Beautiful souls, thank you. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you, Carolyn, so much. I hope that wasn't drowned out by my dad. Way 150 feet in the background has the TV on really loud in his den because he is going kind of hearing impaired. But okay, I want to say good morning, or good afternoon if you're watching on YouTube. But if you're listening on TikTok, Instagram, or X, we welcome you, in Twitch as well. Okay, so a couple of them weren't recording at first. X and YouTube were not recording the first couple of minutes, or the first minute or so, Carolyn, but they got most of your prayers, so we're good with that. So sensitivity being the new normal. I think it's time that this is a time that's coming. I think it's right for the era that we're in right now. Sensitivity doesn't mean something like, oh, you're so sensitive, you're too sensitive. You know what? When you say that to somebody, though, it is a sensitive matter. You know, no matter what level you think it's on, or that you think that they should just get over it. I mean, you know, I'll say what people used to say to me. How would you like it if that happened to you? I mean, because there are some things that are a big deal to some people are not a big deal to others. Some things that are a big deal to some people would be a hell of a big deal, even though the person doesn't think so if that thing happened to them. So, this just get over it mentality is, and there is a time and a very rare specific time and place to say something like that, but it isn't that often at all. Um, it's something that the time has come. I mean, and this way it helps us to be forced to be tuned into, other people's thoughts and other people's, wants and what makes them tick, right? So, and it'll make you more consciously aware. And it's not about watching what you say. We get into this mentality too of, oh, well, I feel like I got to watch what I say. Well, you can't say anything anymore. Well, no, you really, you can't call a black person the N-word anymore. You can't call a person, that likes the same sex. You can't call them the F or H word. Thank God you can't do any, it's not acceptable to do that anymore, because it's just really hateful. And it's, Carolyn, I hate to say this, but it's very insensitive. Mhm. Yep. Oh, the chat room, nothing, just something in the chat room. Yeah, 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 yeah. Dude, I know, and I was thinking, what do he said, "Stop yapping, grandpa," and I was looking in the mirror before we got on air, and I said the same fucking thing to myself. I said, "Man, people are gonna think I'm an old grandpa," and boy, I mean, boy, I guess I'm psychic. I was right. Yeah, 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 man, but I was thinking it too. It's weird. There's nothing to think about it. Yeah, I know. I could just use the hair for men. You know that stuff where you dye your hair. You know what's it called? The just for men. Yeah, just for men. I hear it works. I hear it works wonders. I've seen on the commercial. Hey, I've seen on the commercial. The guy gets turned down for a big job, but he comes back 5 minutes later with his hair black, and all of a sudden, man, they're wanting to hire him and give him a bonus. No. Yeah, I'm back. Yeah. Anyway, the sensitivity thing. Yes. Yeah, that was a little off cuff. Sorry, but yes, that's very
So
insensitive.
that's something else that I'm gonna, sensitivity. Well, one, it's gotten a bad rap, but the other thing is that the more sensitive you get, the more you also have to be able to expand and be flexible in this person's space, in this person's space, and what they find funny and you find offensive. Well, you might find it offensive, but you have to check what was their intent of it. Were they meaning to be offensive? Maybe they weren't.
Yeah.
Maybe it was something that was really between friends or between a family or whatever. And you, with all respect to you, have to check yourself, Um,
Yeah, but I
it's
just got an offer I think I'm gonna take up on, but go ahead, keep going. Go ahead. I just
did do it. That would be a good thing, especially if you'd like to be on Earth for a few more years, right?
right.
Same thing with my babe. So, yeah, but when I was telling you too before we went online, I was tapping into the sensitivity, and it's the subtle, it's the unseen that you connect with more and more and more, and that one's hard because the mind gets in the way and the programming gets in the way, and wants to negate these things, that there's an existence of anything beyond what's unseen. Um, the beautiful thing and not so beautiful thing is that there's the lot that we've seen, or we've witnessed, that we're like shocked by, right? And
Right.
that opens you. First it shocks you, you're pierced, but in that place of the piercing, you're
Yeah.
opened. Then you get to like slowly move into acceptance once it stops stinging a little bit. And at some point, if you choose, if you let yourself flow into the natural cycle, you begin to surrender and be like, whoa, well, maybe that stuff could exist. Well, maybe this could. And at some point, it's like I was reminded just now about allowing. Nothing happens unless you allow it. And sensitivity is the same thing.
Yeah. No,
You know,
that's hard.
there you
Yeah.
go. Yeah, that one right there. Tell your friend yes.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. Yeah, no shit, man. Yeah, I mean, how long do I gotta prove this for? I mean, if it's gonna be a long haul, no, but
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
You got
And
comments. Yeah, go on.
yeah, 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 yeah. We got a bunch of them. Yeah, exactly. I've always eh, been of a very sensitive nature and a sensitive person myself. As I've gotten older, I've learned to get a little bit harder and not take things so personally. But because
Yeah.
most of the time, a person is coming at it, they're not really looking to offend or anything like that. And
Yeah.
genuinely, when somebody does, it's obvious that what they're trying to do, right? If they're doing it on purpose to try to mess around, but there's so many old paradigms. Again, we've said this every show. if we do what we've always done, we're going to get what we've always gotten. And people have been in the mentality, well, that's always the way it's been done. So that's always the way we're going to do it. It's just that way it gets institutionalized, right? Like with everything else, everything that we talk about is a cultural change that needs to come from within all of us, so it can be manifest itself from without.
Completely. It all starts within the individual. The thing I'm getting is that Rumi phrase, the wound is the place where the light enters. And that's about the heart being pierced. And so that's about events and experiences that either have happened or are happening, probably are happening, that are shaking people up or have shaken people up. They've kind of knocked them over. They've pulled away the rug from underneath them. And it's a place where you are in the dark night of the soul. And it's awful. You and I, neither of us would be able to sit here and speak unless we'd gone through that at least once.
Too many
And
times.
yeah, and the more that's the thing is that your sensitivity comes because you've been injured, you've been hurt, you've been pierced many times.
Have you been injured in a sensitivity accident? Yeah, really though. It's true. It happens time and time again.
Yeah, you've been tenderized like a piece of meat, and those defenses and those self-chosen belief systems and barriers and those that were imposed on you from your family or society, they all get approached depending on what your experience is and how you handle it. But it's like all of them poke holes in the walls, in the self-imposed walls, whether they were originally chosen by self or not, they exist. And once those walls start to get pierced, it's very uncomfortable. It's part of existence is that you move out of these comfort places into the uncomfortable. And as you move into the uncomfortable from the place of being pierced, you expand. It's not comfortable. Comfort, but the thing that my guides used to call years ago, it's shifted within me to a degree, but they used to call comfort being asleep. If you're really, really comfortable, it means you're sound asleep.
Yeah.
Now it's loosened up within me because for me, they want me to be a little more settled in my life, but I used to I wasn't comfortable for a very long time. So, you have to keep yourself, I don't want to, I almost want to say on the edge to an extent, but the more that the piercing happens, you're on the edge, but it's a balanced place because you have to make peace with that pain and make peace with those experiences. And just like you were saying a minute ago, Larry, the hard part to come to, but it's the ultimate part to me that I receive, is that at some point you begin to understand that these actions that this other person made, these things that this other person said, although they felt like they were an attack to you and they may have appeared that way at one level, in reality, they were an expression, they were an attack on themselves. They were in that place with you because they were in that place with themselves, and you're just this target that represents things within themselves that they just most definitely don't like, don't want to see, don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
And
you brought up something. It made me think of, when people do that, it's not usually, they're not usually in that good space where, okay,
no.
Man, everything's going great for them, man, everything's rolling, everything's in a flow.
Right.
Usually even people that are prone to being that way, if everything's really going good for them and shit, they don't, they're not really in that mode to do that too much.
No, they have to be in a place where they're miserable, they're unhappy, or they mask it, is what I'm getting as well, where they have they have a smile, but if you feel it out, you'll see that smile isn't authentic, because you can feel it. You're just kind of like, oh, something's off, the writing's on the wall when you meet them in the first place. Yeah.
Typically it is. Yeah. First impressions, man. But first, that's a whole nother subject too. First impressions, gotta typically believe in them. But typically with somebody who's straight up like that, you can usually get a vibe that they are, you know what I mean? That they're that kind of person and that they have that kind of energy. to where they're like that. And then sometimes you don't really realize it. And when that's the case, and then something ends up happening and they act that way, it really can catch you by surprise and it's kind of a weird feeling to have when you
Yeah.
see somebody that you're not expecting to be that way, and
Yeah.
it's not a situation typically where, well, it may be something that just happened really bad in their life, but typically if something really tragic has happened in their life, it's a different kind of a mode they act in than if it's just some, shit that they're going through that, maybe they were part of causing and they're having regrets that it happened or or
Different,
they tend to be a little more cynical, right? It's a different kind of
different
an
energy.
energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm being reminded within me, I'm hearing a cognitive dissonance, right? Something
mhm.
happened and that experience with that person is vastly different than what you thought or vastly different than what you'd experienced before. And, you get the blinders off. And that's ultimately because of things that are happening within you, your ability to see something, to show you, to reveal to you patterns that maybe were there already. Um, Now you can see them. You couldn't see them before,
Yeah.
and now I'm being reminded of,
Yeah, and then things come flood. Just real quick, things will come flooding
yeah,
back to you too that you had seen before, and then you're like, oh, that and you start tying the shit
right,
together. That
right, connect it. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and the thing I was reminded of just now is that um the collective itself has raised its frequency. I mean, it is continuing. There's a splitting, but there's still a raising,
perpetually, right?
and that raising brings more sensitivity, even to those souls that have tried to avoid it tooth and nail. You become more sensitive because the whole environment around you is wired that way. To me, I'm getting that's, I mean, it might be a given for people, but it's why we're sleeping more, right? Why we're groggy, while we're
Mhm.
time is doing this.
Broken up sleep, and yeah, and sleeping here a little bit, and then a whole bunch there, and a whole, and
Yeah, it's
some nights it's a little bit more difficult.
and then the other thing, like you and I have been talking about the fact that and we said it in the last, did we say it, we said in the last podcast, which was like forever ago, but like when you and I were talking about it earlier, drama, less
Mhm,
and less are pulled into drama. It doesn't mean that it's like
mhm,
everybody, but it means that there's like the scale has tipped, and it's not as much the number of people as it is the frequency. Those fewer that hold higher frequency, we tip in that scale.
mhm.
And drama doesn't have its fuel. I mean, you're not seeing those videos that we used to see just a few years, that people were just couldn't get enough of these shocking things, or these, it doesn't mean they don't
Mhm,
exist. It's
mhm.
just
No, they
they don't
still do,
fuel
yeah,
us.
but yeah.
They
They
don't
still
fuel
do,
us
but
like
I'm
they used
seeing
to.
less of it. Yeah, I'm seeing even less of it on other sites besides Facebook, just less of it on, a little bit less of it even on ones that are prone to having it. There's still a couple, but you're seeing less and less of that shock shit. And it's like, how many
Yeah,
times can you run for the goddamn car from a mass murder with it not starting? Apparently
how
seven,
many times
according to Friday the 13th. But
can you hit the
yeah,
wall until you're like, whoa, I really don't want to hit the wall anymore. I
I
know what
mean,
this is going to do.
what's the worst thing that can happen if somebody gets chopped up, cut up, sold up, dug back up, and put back together and have it done again? I mean, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to be a graphic, but you see
Yeah,
that shit. You've seen
yeah,
them all. It's like a bad 1970s karate movie or a war movie from back then, or anything like that, right? It's the same thing time and time and time and time again. But then again, too, just like with what I mentioned, those movies, if you're prone to liking that kind of shit, sometimes it takes a long time for it to get old. I mean, if you're prone to,
yeah. It's
yeah,
trauma. Yeah, trauma. If you're used to more trauma, then it's you have a lot more of that density within you, that
right.
you have a thicker skin, right? But I just heard
Mm-hmm.
clear as day a minute ago, the pain gets old. The pain gets old. The trauma, you know, you might still choose it, but you don't choose it as often as you did before. you're loosening up on it because it's just kind of losing its appeal, losing the taste for it is what I'm
You get
hearing.
tired of watching shit blow up. I mean, you know what I mean? A car
Right.
crash into another car.
Yeah.
Everything has been played out because those kind of things have been slowly shown. Even back before the internet, you would have shock shows on TV.
Yep.
Every now and then there was like hard copy and shit that would show that in the 1980s. And then as we progress into the 90s, you get into the internet age. And so there's this big rush of it, right? And for a couple decades of that kind of shock shit. And everywhere, just like we talked about this before about with Jerry Springer coming on air, everybody was into that, right? Forever until they weren't. And I'm hoping humanity overall, we're going away from this, which is good, but I hope that it will be on a real mass scale at some point. But you mentioned the tipping point, right? So we go down that pyramid, right, of lower frequency. The more people at those other levels they the more that they get in tune with this, right, within their family or their clique or
Yep.
whatever, that'll rub off and that'll rub off and that'll rub off and hopefully it just won't be something anymore that people do or as long as it's something that they're not doing with anybody who's not a consensual adult or not willing or they're not engaged anything that's harmful to a kid and a senior
Yep.
if they're not doing anything like that that's hurting you personally or anybody that doesn't have any control then it's none of your fucking business personally.
Yep. No, I agree.
I mean,
It's not. It's not. That's me. I agree too. You know, the other
yeah,
thing
and
I
that
was
comes
getting,
into and we're all humans. It's a sensitivity thing. We all bleed red. Well, I mean, I guess it's red, but you know what I mean. We all bleed the same color, and somebody's whatever's bothering them. Let me put it this way: I've never had too many people come up to me with an issue and start complaining about it, and they were just complaining they were just making it up to make it up. Now they may be over exaggerating it, of course. We know that sometimes. But whatever it is something that does bother them, whether it's petty or it seems petty, it's still something that's in their mind that it bothered them or it struck a nerve with them, right? So there's an issue there. I've never had anybody
right?
just for no reason come up and say it and have nothing going on and oh hey man,
Yeah.
oh, I'm God. I just really hate that the sun came out today. God, I'm just so, God, fuck the sun. It's really ruined my day. And I just, I've never heard anybody do that when everything's cool.
Yeah. It's I mean, I hear you. The thing I got a minute ago is the pain gets old and then the softening gets more peeling. It's we're drawn more and more to the more authentic exchanges and the softer stuff, like when somebody would react, somebody is in trauma and you're aware of that and you can feel that and you have a softer response to them than you might have had before, where you're just like, get your shit
Hmm.
together. Maybe you're going to say something like, hey, you okay? Is there something I can do? I can tell you're in one of those places again, or I can tell that um, and yes, this existed before, but it's what we're talking about is this isn't just personality trait. This isn't just a character of the personality is what I'm getting, which was what the old would put a kind of plop it into, would be sensitivity. Oh,
Hmm.
it's this. No, this is an
Hmm.
entire way of existence is what I'm getting. It's a awareness of other levels of existence, and it's an ability to pivot your reaction intentionally to things that would normally set you off, but since you're conscious of what that might do to you because you have begun that inner journey, or maybe you've had an extensive inner work and you're at this place where you can pivot even faster, but you choose consciously to not react in the way that you used to because that dynamic, when you react that way they react this way, and
Hmm.
you end up like this, and you're at this place where you're just like, I'm done. I know that this goes this way. I really want this to be a healthy relationship. And what I'm getting is it not necessarily romantic. Maybe this is a friendship. Maybe this is a coworker. I don't want this to be
Yeah.
this anyway. So I'm going to pivot because I know this person hasn't paid attention to the stuff within themselves, or isn't, because I've been paying attention to their behavior. I've seen how they react to things, and I'm more aware of it myself because of the work I've done on myself
Hmm.
now. And so they do this, and I know in the past when I said this or I acted this way, then they do this because they're in this unconscious pattern. So
Mm-hmm.
now that I have made myself, I have done this work, and I am now aware of this pattern, I'm going to change it. And I'm preparing myself that this could be a beautiful exchange, or it could piss them off.
Well,
Either way, I'm going to change it, and I'm going to do my best
yeah.
to just to move in a place where I am now, and to honor myself for the work I've done, and to be an example of that for
Do you
them,
think
to
that,
offer that.
yeah, yeah, do you think that working in the profession you do though part-time, when you're teaching, do you think that that's helped mold you a little bit in this realm? And another thing with that is too, do you see a little bit more sensitivity, or let me guess, I bet you it's going to depend on what school or what kind of demographics you're dealing with, maybe.
Well, I mean, when you ask
With
about it, the teaching, actually what I go to within me is when I've worked with disabilities, and especially autism, which is, off and on 15 years, right?
right,
So my sensitivity is very different than many, because I'm not just paying attention to the normal stuff.
you're
I'm
in
paying
the,
attention to the level of the light, and the level of the noise, and the vibrations around me, and the colors, and the images, and the shapes, and the everything that the
yes,
particular group or client I'm with is hypersensitive to. Or I remember one in a movie theater, and the lights, when those lights changed, it triggered her. Um,
really,
and
what
she had to,
happened? Yeah.
you know, um,
Mhm.
I calmed her down. But I
Okay.
didn't expect that, because when you're working with those and it's your work, you already are putting yourself forward into whatever they're walking into, right into that space. And I didn't anticipate that light thing for some reason. But
No, well,
usually,
that's a hard one, unless that's one of those kind of things, though, right? That example, if you haven't had that happen with them yet, or know this yet, I mean, that you wouldn't even if you knew it, you wouldn't remember to think, oh, the movie theater lights are going to come on. That's one that from experience, or know because they have an issue, and okay, the light, yeah, I wouldn't think that either. I mean, that would be an oversight I would make as well, for sure. Oh, are you
oh,
still? Oh, there she is. Oh, Carol.
that's my babe. My babe just,
Oh, he made you some. Well, I guess it would be about lunchtime there in that great progressive state of Texas.
oh, yeah, oh,
Yeah,
yeah. No, you have to, you know, because that's my experience. Like I worked in the first autistic group home in the country that was established, that I'm aware of, um, which was in Charlotte. And I remember working with those male, five males who were chronologically adults, developmentally. And I've said this before in other podcasts. They were children. One was 6 months old,
yeah.
but he was 99 years old. And
Lord, really? Wow.
yeah, it's it takes you have to stretch, and you have to be an individual, or I'm hearing a soul that is willing to stretch. You have to be, but the things that you learn, how you see life, wow, and it all shifts. And to me,
It
that's
really
what's
does
happening,
too.
to the collective at another pace, is that they're becoming more sensitive. And it's also can be, yeah, to the individuals, to the souls that have been or have experienced a lot of trauma. It could be like an assault, the sensitivity, because they're already
Big
sensitive,
time.
and but it's interesting, because like with my babe, you would think that he wouldn't want to see certain things because they're really traumatic, but for him, they're normal for him,
Yeah, and you just don't
um
know. And there could be varying degrees of that too with people, right?
right, right. um
Yeah, you just don't. You don't know some things that you would think are kind of touchy. They might be like, oh yeah, yeah. They might be so acclimated to it that yeah, it's
no big
it is.
deal.
But then again, there could be some little part of something that, man, it really touches something within them, and it's not really something that they feel comfortable going there with, and It's not about being, I want to stress again, though, that it's not about this watching your step thing or watch what you know, it's not about that. It's just about being, about awareness is the first, awareness is a tool for these suckers to stop guessing, really. So is consciousness, but it really is, just being aware that there's life outside around than just your bubble that you live in. There's which that,
Right.
but I mean, all those people are having issues too, and then some, and then maybe some less, but the same kind of intricacies of different things going on too. It's not just Bill down the street who's just a prop that you weigh that all the time. You know what I mean? I mean, we know that, but sometimes I wonder if people really take that into consideration. Okay, you know.
It's being aware, yeah, your surroundings, your environment, what's happening on the world stage. There's also, your neighborhood. Um,
Your neighborhood
not,
watch for people like me. Yep.
I'm getting something about not not being in a box is what I'm hearing. Going from your
Right.
house, going to work, and going back to your house and being in a box. Even if you want to be in a box, because yes, the more sensitive you become, the more that you want to recluse. There's certain times you don't want to deal with anybody. That's fine.
No,
Um,
right.
you just learn how to navigate that and talk to people when you have
Yeah.
to. Um, you know, uh, and the sensitivity of others is directly connected to the sensitivity and the space that you give yourself, the kindness that you give yourself, the compassion that you allow yourself in spaces that you normally would have pushed yourself, kicked your own ass. Um,
Mhm, mhm.
and it's like you let up on that. It's not that you don't discipline yourself, but it's that you shift the manner and the force in which you do it is what I'm hearing. Um,
Yeah, we're so quick to wanna get it off our own plate. We're so quick to wanna get it out of our own. If it's our own stuff, we're so quick to wanna get it out of there and then have it on somebody else. But if it's somebody else you have to deal with who you're gonna have to have maybe a part in it, then you get apprehensive too. So it's this big head game that we play that's really we wouldn't have to if, we were just in tune with that and, as well as other things, but especially the sensitivity. If we were in tune with our own and in tune that other people have their own too, it would just manifest into understanding, right? For the most part, there'd still be a few hiccups, I'm sure, but it would go a long way, right? Instead of just
there,
this, oh, I gotta watch what I say all the time, because that's a simple way to box it into.
yeah, I mean the thing I'm getting is I heard something just now about this common ground. It's the common ground at when you're moving into higher frequencies, when you're operating at higher levels of you. I don't know how to say that properly. However you say that, it's the
Yeah.
ground. It's the connecting ground between you and others is always the sensitivity, which is it's this pivot. It's the pivot. You got this bottom line of respect and kindness and compassion, um, and at the same time
Mhm.
discernment. You know,
Mhm. Mhm.
what are they? What are they? What is their intent? What is their energy? Have they done any? Can you when you're with yourself and you're having these conversations, maybe not even verbal, you're just energetically feeling, have they done any work? Am I feeling any awareness with them that, forgive me for all that may not, are they clueless? Are they paying attention? Are they able to connect at this level? Can I have this kind of conversation with them, or is it going to have to be this kind of conversation with them? At least I can talk to them about this because, we're on the same earth. So, the fire that was down the street, or,
Mhm.
you know, and are they okay? And then you can watch them and see their reaction. And um, I'm getting something about mirroring within me now is it's those that are in the trauma place. When you're in a more sensitive place, which also means that you're discerning. You could say you have armor. I don't like the word armor, but you are, whatever that word is, shielding. You know what I'm saying, Larry? You're interacting
Mhm.
with them, and they're in a very
You're filtering really you're playing the filter game of
yeah, you're with them and you're interacting them, and they're very I mean, that this is another word, another connotation for sensitive, right? They're punchy, they're irritated, they're irritable, and
Yeah.
you can feel it, and you know, you want to give them space and not get in that space of where they're being prickly, but you still want to help them if you can, you know, and that's where that place is that you know within yourself that they're going through this experience, and that anything they say to you really has nothing to do with you. They're just attacking. They're just scared. They're like a scared child is what I'm hearing within me. They're just
Mm-hmm.
seeking that security, and you're, you know, encroaching in their space, and you know that they still need that security. Um, yeah, go on, Larry.
Yeah, well, and two, it's like this. If there's some issue that a loved one of yours is having, and they're having whatever, it's about how you approach it too. It's one thing to point out somebody's shortcoming or something that they're doing by being snide about it, and you just need to get over it, or I wouldn't do that, or I never and I always, but really nobody nevers or always is. Versus, hey, look, can I talk to you? I got a concern. Do it in private, right? And yeah, and a lot of times that snide, snarky shit is done. Lo and behold, Carolyn, I know this will shock you. It's usually done in front of people, other people too,
Yeah,
typically,
yeah,
right? Because when it's done just over, not open, but
yeah,
when it's done in person, it's not as when it's done just person to person with nobody else around. Yeah, it's still insensitive and hurtful, but it makes it even worse when there's somebody else around too. Or it could be a person
I'm here.
doing it who does not do that in front of other people. It could be a person who, gets you in private and does that, and they don't let on that they're like that to anybody else, which is that bullying. But typically, yeah, typically it's a situation where it's all about how you approach it. Like, hey, I got a
Yeah,
problem. Hey, son, I got a problem. Or hey, dad, hey,
yeah,
with your sister, your brother, I got a issue or a friend. Can we talk about it? Like, really, it's you and me, nobody else around. I don't know if I say all that as a preamble. That might make them think you're going to tell them that the world's ending or something. But I mean, hey, can I talk to you about something real serious? I mean, talk
right.
to about the private. Besides that, if your desired outcome is to alter what they're doing for their whether it's for their own benefit, if your desired outcome is that, then that's how you would the best effective way you would approach it anyway would be one-on-one in private, as personal as it could possibly be, without it
Yep,
being a situation where you're fucking calling them out of the blue in front of people. I mean, that to
yeah,
me, I don't give a shit what they did unless it was something right there that they did in front of everybody. But even then, but I mean, unless it was something they did in front of everybody else in that room, right?
yep,
Then there's no reason why you're sitting there and talking about that in front of other people. There will be people with this is really crazy. There will be people that will do that, whether it's spouses, family members that will fucking do that in front of other people with no filter that other people are there.
yep,
It's like,
yep,
dude, let's wait
yep,
and go
yep,
talk
yep,
and
yep.
talk in private. Yeah, if you can't keep yourself cool for about 5 minutes or an hour, if you can't fucking keep cool for that long to say something when you know goddamn good and well you're gonna have the whole rest of whenever to say it,
Right,
here in a little bit. It isn't like this is your one and only chance to get it out, right? You're going to have a chance to whenever you leave the situation you're in, or you could leave it at any time you wanted to, right? In those scenarios I'm talking about, you can wait if you have a problem with somebody. You don't need to air a bunch of dirty laundry. And I never could understand why people would want to do that, though. You know what I mean? Because it puts everybody else on the spot. And either these people are like, yeah, they want to see something go on, or they're embarrassed, or they don't know what to say. So you're getting a reaction out of everybody else by doing that. There's a lot of mofos out there that do that.
because they at one level get off on,
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
you
That's been
know
the trade of
that
everybody I'm
that
thinking of.
power
Yep.
trip, which clearly shows you when they do that where they are, because if they're getting off on that power trip, then that means that they don't know how to derive that power from within themselves. They have to steal it, or to receive it from their external,
Hmm.
rather than being able to tap within themselves, and in that inner
Yeah.
conversation they don't know who they are. The souls that make those choices They
No.
don't know who they are. They're not in a conversation with themselves. And those are the ones, though it's not easy,
Mm,
those are the ones that when you're ready deserve the most compassion, because they are not, they don't know who they are. And to me, that's like that's a travesty. That's a very sad thing, right? And it's like,
yeah.
you know, to me, the whole part of the journey, the reason for the journey, living is at one level is who are you? You know, they don't know who they are. They aren't in conversation with themselves, which means that they don't even know what makes them happy. They don't even know what their dreams are. When somebody's in that kind of place, they don't even know what their dreams are. You
It
know,
seems to fit with everything in every example I can think of. Everything you're saying seems to fit that mode, right? They just don't
yeah.
know. They don't have a filter and they don't know. I'd rather, and it's one worse. I'd rather have the level where somebody who is really intentionally like that, but then only would get you in private because they didn't want anybody else to see it. I'd rather, because at least somebody like that is being exactly who they are, versus somebody who's just having all those issues like you said and going to say that in front of other people.
Yep.
There's some things that they have to be at some point held accountable, and I don't give a shit what the problem was they were bringing up. I mean, if it wasn't involving directly any of the people around them or all of them, there's no reason to bring it up, right? And if they do that, there's got to be some kind of but there is, because there's energy that's put out there, right? They're getting that back, and then they probably wonder why they keep getting that kind of shit back in return with life.
Or the other example I was given within me, or is that you said something, maybe you didn't even do it intentionally, but you said something that triggered them so much that they normally wouldn't speak up,
Mm-hmm.
but they are compelled within themselves to speak up
Oh yeah.
because it's something, it's a trigger within them, and maybe it's a trigger they didn't realize.
And it might not
And
even be the, are
that's
you
it.
saying that it might, right, but are you saying that it might not even be the general point you were making? You might have said something within that point too that triggered them, and that's why it seems weird to you, because then they act pissed off about what you said, and you're like, what I say. But it was something within the dialogue of it, but not necessarily completely the dialogue that they were coming at it from, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they might, because the other thing I'm getting is that it's not always people that are unconscious. It's those that are doing the work, but they're new at it. They're in it, but they're new at it, and they've got landmines that they didn't realize this
Mm,
landmine was here. And they didn't realize this landmine was here, and those triggers are just right there, and they're coming at them right and left because the rawness within them, um, which is a different pivot from the soul that is clueless in their own experience and just kind of,
mm.
you know, unconscious is the one I'm getting. The other one I'm getting is that they're conscious. They're conscious, but they're coming into consciousness. They're coming into awareness, and they're still learning what are those landmines? What are those triggers? Oh wow, that really pissed me
Mhm.
off. Why did that person do that? They did that to, and that's somebody who is just coming into awareness. Probably would be a lot of that one. I would think more of that
Yeah,
one, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, I would say that was, pretty much, if you were to base it on grading the curve, everybody, most people are like that now. What you're saying, if you're going to look at the
Yeah,
whole overwhelming
yeah,
majority of the population, I'm not talking about the light worker, starseed, new age, quantum metaphysical, UFO community, church community
right,
that we're.
right.
I'm talking about, right, the whole population as a whole. That would be, and that's a good sign, because that means they're taking a next step into
Yes,
this awareness coming in, and it's
yeah,
happening whether people like it or not, like we've touched on a million times, right?
yep,
The Earth's raising in vibration, all this shit, all the solar flares energetically that are hitting the Earth, right? It's all changing that dichotomy. So
right.
um, it's happening regardless. But yeah, that would probably be, and thankfully, hopefully, I'd like to see it the other level up where it's not the case, but that's the kind of situation I think a lot of people are coming into, and whether they realize it or not, right? If what we're saying resonates with one person out there, right? That's kind of,
Right.
they're having a little change in their life, man. Maybe a spiritual awakening. I don't know. Maybe they like this instead of that, or that instead of this now. I mean, Coke instead of Pepsi, Pepsi instead of Coke, which I got to quit drinking so much of that shit. Anyway, it's they're not sure, right? They're not sure why they're going through this. But what you'll find probably with watching them is that they'll be in more situation where they'll be a little more sensitive to
Yeah.
issues, right? They'll have a clearer, concise way of giving advice back or giving feedback, and or not feeling uncomfortable to give any feedback, right? That's positive. They'll know how to say it. You know, um, I'm sorry for, then we get into these word games. I mean, oh, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry, and then you don't even want to say anything because you know that everything's been regurgitated and said before, right? And you're trying to find that balance of being sensitive too in the situation, and you want to convey
Yeah.
that you have that sensitivity, that you have that empathy for whatever it is they're going through, right?
Yep.
So it's also, so it comes back to, I guess, it comes back to an energy when it's coming off of them, whether it's, "Oh, I'm sorry for your loss," or, "Oh, I know how you feel," or, do you? Yeah, guy just lost all his kids in a big car wreck. "Oh, I know how you feel, pal." Pat him on the back. It's being aware, and it's being what your heart is directing to you. Like you talk about that heart, I'm gonna let you do your little saying. But that candy store you have, that heart of yours,
Yeah.
it comes back to going through that heart, right? Reawakening the conversation of the heart. Carolyn Lanier Roberts.
Very much. Well, I mean, yes, the thing I'm getting is I was getting something about the degree of suffering, the degree, the amount of pain. Yeah, I was just getting that clearly. Yeah, it's about, so it's about the heart opening from when it was a place where it was closed, and the individual that we mentioned before that was unconscious, that was verbally attacking in that space with others, very present, not giving a
Mhm.
fuck about others hearing it because they're only in their
Oh
shit.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
right. That's a person who has a closed heart, and they're operating from seeking their identity and from external sources and not knowing who they are. And that's because they're solely grounding their reality in their mind and their projections. Within me, I always hear
Yeah.
about regurgitation. They're crap. They're taking their crap and regurgitating it back out in the world, and it's coming back to them. And so, yeah, my mission is to be a reawakener of the conversation of the heart, and that is the conversation between the sacred mind and the sacred heart. The sacred mind moves from the mind to the sacred mind when the person is pierced. They're pierced by an experience, by an event that shocks them and strips them momentarily or maybe longer of false belief systems that they were living within that they thought were reality, and they grounded their entire existence in it, and everything in the external said this is real, the thing they've been living in is real, and yet something happens that knocks them off their feet, and they like, it's a choice,
They're
it's honestly a
Godsmack.
choice.
Yeah.
It's a choice where souls are going to be like, I'm done with this shit, and they take their lives, or they choose to deal with what is they're facing and move through it. And as they move through it, their heart is pierced from the event, and as they move through it and as they learn how to navigate, I'm hearing surf, and they become more sensitive and responsive is what I'm hearing to their external,
Hmm.
because they're becoming more sensitive and responsive to their internal, to the within themselves, and they give
Hmm.
themselves more space to exist is what I'm hearing within myself. they it's a healing that happens, and then the heart opens more, and from that place, from that original piercing, and then the expansion is where the mind that I hear within me shifts to the sacred mind, and there's like this blossom is what I'm seeing. And then the conversation deepens or begins, and then it deepens to this, it's this balance of back and forth, but the heart is slowly begin to put in its true right, righteous, I'm hearing righteous, I don't hear that place of leading, of being the seer, the interpreter of, and then the mind takes its lead from the sacred heart, and
Hmm.
the soul begins to, well, the softening happens automatically, because when you shift to the heart and you're not in the logical space of the mind. And as I said before in other podcasts, logic is a very useful tool, but it's a box. You won't find love.
Yeah,
You
that's
won't
what I
find
say too.
love
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
logic. You won't find joy in logic.
No,
Compassion
no.
does not exist in logic. Those have no place in logic.
Beautiful.
But logic is a
Beautiful
useful
though.
system for other things, but it's not a system to live
Discernment.
by.
Yeah.
You have
No,
to
not at all. Just to use for a
expand.
little discernment
Yeah,
here and there, but you can't, right? You can't use it
completely.
when you're talking about a feeling or an emotion, right? I mean, because you can't use a box to you can't use a small box to enclose a fucking big biodome. You know what I mean? So
You
you
can't,
can't. And
can't.
you were talking about how people people that do that, they don't give a shit who hear what's around them. I think I originally brought that up, but I wonder what the percentage, just out of curiosity, of the total population is that have been hurt and damaged by that. Because think about it, when you're not aware and you're in that mode of having that done to you, right? You're especially by a loved one, right? You're gonna sit there and think, what the hell's wrong with me? What is wrong with me? Boy, then you get then the kicker is you get drawn to those kind of people too, right?
Right,
Relationship after relationship, and then different friends or
right.
whatever. You get drawn into people that might be like that. It's kind of the weirdest thing until you figure it out. But not always that people are just drawn to that are in that mode, but or that are in that mode of thinking that when somebody says that to them, God, I got so many things wrong with me and all that, right? You wonder how many people in the population have been damaged, really damaged by people like this.
My gut feeling isn't pleasant because to me it's a lot. It's many. It's been,
Ooh,
it's why uh I'm getting it's why the collective, why we could take the extreme violence of the movies because it mirrored the extreme violence within us, and
yeah.
and in our memories I'm getting, and in our DNA I'm getting as well. And so, like, this sensitivity that's coming is also revealing and releasing these the old patterns that existed within us from our personal choices, but the choices we made from the family we came through, from our ancestry, from the age we lived in. And I choose to say lived in the Piscean age, and those choices and that stamping is what I'm hearing, that energetic stamping of this is the way to exist, this is the way to survive, which we moved through that. We lived there. We've been there. We've done that. I'm hearing that. Been there and done that. Got the bumper sticker for it. We're good. Just the way I phrase it to you, Larry, the way I always receive it within me is that at some level, everything that can be learned has been learned by every soul. It's like done. We're good. And that, when I say that, that has to do coming from the paradigm that was created from the rules and the structures of the Piscean age, which are now at one level crumbling, at another level crumbled, gone. And now I'm hearing the new scaffolding is the softening, the compassion, the heart, the opening. And I know anybody listening, I know you're seeing it. You're seeing it on edges of your reality. Some of you guys are seeing it right in front of your face. It's coming in, and it's not going away. It
Mm.
is it is what will be. It is the structure of this age, the Aquarian age. It's part of it is this. It's
Which
vastly
we just
different from
finally
where we moved
shifted
to.
into,
From
yeah,
what's that,
right.
Larry?
Which we just kind of finally shifted into that Aquarian age. I mean, like this year. I mean,
Like
so
this. Yeah.
I'm expecting to see a time, Carolyn, where people, and maybe even real soon, where a lot of people are really en masse going to be wondering exactly what's going on. Like something's different, right? People that aren't in our
Right.
community, they're gonna be like, God, what is? And so it's gonna get to the point where you'll start hearing about even people, and then then you'll hear another story and another one, and you'll be like, okay, well, wow, this is really, these people must be going through kind of their own little dark soul of the night, right? And
Yeah.
I see that happening too, and I think it'll force people to really look at themselves all day long, and they'll have to,
Yeah.
and they'll be even more sensitive. I think that's going to help with the sensitivity issue because man, they'll understand that, what you put out there, you get back, right? So it's like,
Right.
it pay, being nice, it's not, listen, it's nice to be nice. It really is. And it's nice for the person to be nice. It's not just nice to the person you are, that it's nice, right? It's nice for you and your soul to be that way, right?
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
and I mean, for me, that's not others, but that's where I come from. Is it's you do it for you first, and it's not a selfish thing, because when you are really in a place of loving yourself, love is a conversation that doesn't exclude anybody. So when you love
mhm.
yourself, you genuinely love yourself, it
Yeah.
automatically goes out to everybody. When you honor yourself, it automatically goes out to your world. It's not an isolated conversation ever. Love is not genuine, authentic, unconditional love. There's no attachments, there's no expectations. It's given
Mm-mm.
freely, it's received freely. And so when you
Well, we
love
could sure use a lot
yourself,
more of that. We could sure go ahead, but could sure use a hell of a lot more of that in this world, Carolyn.
yeah, yeah, it's coming. It's beautiful. It's
I
coming.
mean,
Soul by
you,
soul by soul, heart by heart by heart, you know?
well, there
Yeah,
you just touched on it though, right? It's that process of egg one by one by one by one by one, right? It's like a fucking big strand on a huge Christmas tree at the park, in the park for Christmas, right? One light, it'd be like
yeah,
one light going off at a time. It wouldn't seem like it's making a difference, but
right.
then it gets more, then it picks up in frequency as there's more lights, it shines brighter. Whatever, analogy you could come up with, it's better than mine. I was going to say park. I was trying to think of that park in New York when I said park, but it's Central Park I was referring to, with
Yeah.
all the trees. But yeah, not that we don't have any out here in the Pacific Northwest, right? I mean, we've got a tree or two out here, but I mean, still,
Yeah.
right, but still, it's a process that starts one by one by one, and then the more, it's just like with anything else, the more that it accelerates, the more that it becomes a domino effect. I mean, just like I did that talk, not to bring it up a few weeks ago about the Vietnam War. Okay, so the
Yeah.
tide
I knew
turned.
you were going to say
Eventually,
that.
more and more people in the public, right, were started to become against it. Okay, it wore on and was getting old anyway. They fleeced what they could out of it anyway, so it was dying down anyway. But the public tide changed against it to end it maybe a year or two earlier than it was. Not that it didn't go on for a fucking 1,000 years already, but
Yeah.
that kind of happens, right? And then then different factors play, and then you get a wild card that comes in and helps accelerate the situation too, when enough people have stay awakened to that kind of living, that more of an empathetic versus a sympathetic mindset, right?
Right. Bringing it closer in. Yeah. 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 Completely. It's huge.
It is, and it may not seem like at first like it makes a difference, but it will eventually when you stop wondering if it's going to make a difference and stop, you know, thinking about that you're trying to do it, to affect that kind of change. Maybe that, and when I say affect that kind of change, I mean like maybe you change how you deal with family members that you don't really like anymore. I mean, yes, we talk about all the time loving them from afar and all that, and giving distance to them if it's not good for your growth path. But if it's somebody that you're dealing with in person all the time, right? And maybe you're trying a little different approach with them finally after all these years, and it doesn't seem like it's making a
Mhm.
difference. I mean, just keep at it. Eventually, it will, and it might be too that you show some act of kindness like that to them in front of people and some other person sees it and they don't know what it is, but it hits them and it affects them. Or it could be something that you did that was sensitive out in public to somebody that needed a little bit of help or something. You were sensitive to what they had just done instead of everybody laughing at them, dropping their tray of food on their way to their table or some shit, right? You empathize with them, not you go, what help, I don't know, help them pick it up, or just, you'll have a laugh with them, say, man, I just did that the other day, or,
Yeah.
instead of, everybody just laughing at somebody. I mean, people used to laugh at people for getting hurt all the time,
Yeah, they did.
I was in class one time years ago, to give you an example, and some kid's chair broke on him. He was just sitting there.
Okay.
It was in home ec, and it broke, and the whole class started erupting in laughter. Now, it would be funny if the chair
Yeah.
broke by itself and nobody got hurt, but dude, he fell on his ass, man, and it hurt him, man. You know,
Yeah.
people laughing
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
it, though.
Yeah.
But people will do that. People are fucking fuckwads. I'm sorry, but they're learning. But really, though, that's from what I'm but then again, I'm an alien. I'm not even fucking from this planet, really, in real life, real time. So it doesn't make any sense to me that people have that kind of mentality to do that, but it speaks volumes for us as a society as a whole. You again earlier you talked about the infatuation, right, with seeing violence, right? Now you take
Right.
America for example. We love that kind of stuff, right? We're so into it. Like we're a Scandinavia. I've talked to several Scandinavian people now, on there back in the day, now everybody's got satellite and the internet. Okay, fine. Back in the day at 8 o'clock on TV, you might see it, might see a naked body part or whatever on their TV, but you wouldn't see somebody getting their head blown up. Contrast that with America, you'll see
Yeah.
it the inference that somebody got their head blown up, but at the same time, if you show a shoulder outside of the dress back in those days, the FCC was on their ass like it was no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it plays into the whole thing, right? Being sensitive to that. Yeah, but well, you were talking about the uncomfortabilityness of it. Okay, so that's what they're comfortable with, right? Is the violence. So they don't
Right.
want to see anything nudity on TV because they've got some sexual hangups themselves, right? I'm not trying to get off on that tangent, but
Right.
it really, I should have took notes while you were talking about it. But it made me think that okay, well then they're not they don't want to see any of that or know anything about any of that because it's something they would have to delve into personally, right? That
Right.
isn't maybe such a thrill to them that's an issue. Maybe the wanting to see violence
Yeah.
is an issue to them, but it's a thrill thing for them as well. So,
Yes.
yeah, fine. But if they don't want to see a goddamn, somebody's shoulder, bare on television, they oh god, thank God I can't see that. Oh my God, I gotta cover my kid's eye. What's he gonna he's gonna see somebody's got a body.
That's
I used
so
to hear that
blind.
all the time. Oh, I took the kid to a rated R movie. First of all, I took a kid to a rated R movie and I kept having to cover his eyes. First of all, I don't give a shit if you can't find a babysitter. If you're against that, period, you're a hypocrite for doing that. I don't have a problem with it personally, but then you're gonna take them in there and you're gonna cover their fucking eyes when they see something like that. Granted, I'm not for purposely just taking them and showing them shit at that age, but if they see it on a movie, that's not really based on that completely, you're not taking them to a pornographic movie, of course, it's rated R, but you're seeing that and you're going to cover their eyes, so you're going to start to have them have hangups about it, like it's something like it's something taboo, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hold on, TikTok one day. Harold, I gotta talk. Okay, I had to get TikTok back on so it wouldn't go off. I gotta say something real quick in the show to the TikTok viewers. I
Okay.
see people that want to come on to the show, and we want people to TikTok, but I keep hitting invite, and I don't know if it's people aren't getting it or they're not wanting to come in, or I'm still trying to understand if that's just part of some people's profile that when they go into a place like this they have the invitation out. But then again, it could be on my end. I'm hitting it, and I have to think it's on my end because I've invited so many people. But one guy the other night did come in for a second. I don't know what I did right, but I have invited many people on TikTok. In fact, everybody that's requested to come into the room, I've invited you. I've hit, and if I haven't, do it
Awesome.
again. Yeah, yeah. So we would like Carol and I would like to have interaction with people. We're not
Yes.
have guests at some point, but I
Yes.
can't get people on
Yes.
TikTok too. And what sucks about YouTube is they used to run it through Google Hangout. Yeah, the audio and shit wasn't as good, but you could invite up to 1,000 people to be in the talk with you at once. Now you can't.
Very
There's no
cool.
option to do that with YouTube unless you give them the link, like to come in the room, like you would do with a guest. So there's some things that have you take, I guess, with everything, Carolyn, you take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and that's how we roll as a society. Keep on moving on down, boogieing on down that
Yeah.
highway of life, right?
I'm gonna
So
say hi to my
yeah,
babe because he said
yeah.
hi.
Oh,
Hi, babe.
oh,
I
hey,
can't reply to you, but hi, babe.
yo, what's up? What's up, E? What's up, man? Love you too, brother, very much. We can't wait to get. Him and I are going to do a little late night talk one of these times. A little
He'll
late
be
night
very
talk.
different.
Yeah, the
He'll
Carolyn
be
and
very
Eric
different.
show. Yeah, we have that. The couples advice night. Yeah, which really would pay off for a lot of people to hear, by the way. But that's getting off on another
It'll come.
issue.
It'll
Yeah,
come.
it'll
My for
come.
anybody that doesn't know, my babe is um
A
well, he's
podcast.
amazing. What's that?
He loves his podcast.
He's experienced with trauma. I'll say it that way. How about that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That says enough. Um
Yeah. Yeah, and it goes to show there's all kinds of levels of this shit, right?
Awesome, babe.
So it comes into a play where, okay, so we were talking, you mentioned the scenario with him earlier. Some things don't really bug him to watch that you might think
Yeah,
stereotypically would with what he's gone through, right? And then, some people might be like that too. And then, there's something you think, oh, that wouldn't be such a bad subject to give him, jokingly give him a bad time about, but it is because something really deeply inside that you're not thinking of because you don't know the whole situation with that really messes with their head.
my
You
trigger.
know,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
so you don't
absolutely.
know, and again, I don't know how to get if I can get this point clearer enough. We're not talking about watching your step or getting in this mode of
No,
oh God, I can't say anything anymore. Well, what would you say to you? Hey, that might be a good point. What if you were really confused about that issue, why not step aside for a second, ask yourself in a real way, what would I if I had anything like that going on? What would be acceptable for me to hear? And don't be in fucking denial with yourself. You know what I mean? Don't be like,
yeah,
oh,
an honest
I never
conversation. Yeah.
always, yeah, but you know what I mean? I wonder if that might be an effective tool, like if there's something that you're considering broaching with somebody, right? And if
Well,
it's something you're dying to know, if you're absolutely like dying to know and you think it might be sensitive, there is a way you can say it to people in private. Like I was curious, there's a
yeah,
way to do this shit.
I was I was getting something just now when you were talking about it, and I was feeling the energy. And it's like when you're talking about the sensitivity that we're not talking about this. To me, I receive that as like a way to block. It's a block. It's an inner. It's like
Ooh,
yeah. When don't do this, don't do this. It's like don't. So it's like a block. It's pushing people away. It's aversive. This isn't that. This is like I was saying, it's a way of being. That to me,
mhm.
to be honest, generally there were those that had loving intent when they said that, but overall, what I'm getting is yeah. What did you say, my love? The conversation you guys had last time. Yes, my
Yeah,
love.
man. Well, yeah. Within a little, put a little bit of a box, man. If this were the last time we were ever going to be on air, man, first of all, I'd probably have to go into a half-hour dialogue and talk about what Eric and Carolyn mean
The
to
giant
me,
tribe.
and then
Yeah.
I'd have
Okay.
to go in. Yeah, then I'm going to bring up Uncle John. Then I'm going to bring up Susie down the street. Then it'll be Bill, Mark, Todd, John, Tom. Get out the phone book, call them all, get on the phone. Hurry up, you idiots, and call them for me now. But
Larry,
or I would tell everybody exactly what I thought of them. But anyway, I digress.
no,
But
I
thanks,
was
brother.
just
That's a
saying
great
that
suggestion.
that's a sensitivity the way that some people might receive it. That was actually a barrier, and what I was getting was it was actually about actually I heard within me very clearly it was about silencing because you didn't want to
Yeah,
overstep, you didn't want to offend anybody, you didn't want to. It was about not speaking your truth because you
yeah.
didn't want to. Now the truth is now about sensitivity is um, at this level where we are now, not then, but level where we are now. It's a way of existing. It's a way of navigating in your world at all levels. Is it's
Mm-hmm.
like this wider awareness and the ability to
Mm-hmm.
pivot how you react to this, pivot how you react to this, and that also includes in discernment that you pivot this way and you pivot this way depending on I'm getting the subject, the person, um, and that has to do with your amount of sensitivity that you have within you, and I'm hearing you entertain within yourself as well, because you can certainly block it, ignore it, deny it, because it takes nurturing. It's about nurturing you to build you, to support you into a place where you are more sensitive, which is also a place of loving self. It's kind of the same thing, which is loving others, right? Um, but
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
from a
right,
place of
right.
nurturing.
While it's fresh in my head, I want to say too is, and I think this is a situation are all guilty of we're not guilty of the situation, but we're guilty of being in is when you have somebody in your life that's going through something, whatever it is, and it may not be something that probably isn't something that affects you genuinely, but yeah, you care about the person. You'll get in this mode where, God, I'm so sick of them talking about that. God, when are they going to get over it? I'm so sick. But the thing is,
Yeah.
you're not. Would you rather be, if you really looked at that situation, would you rather be in their mindset, having to deal with it? Or would you rather have to just be able to deal with it like you do and just kind of put up with it? I'd rather just be in the situation where I'm kind of putting up with it than have being in the trauma that they're in, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I've got to think of that. It's like, okay, I can say, well, I mean, I got to show them some empathy because it would suck. I would not like to be where they were at or how they got to where they're at, right? So, whether you think that it's a chicken shit little issue that they're upset about or not, but the thing is, right, they're obviously, we're talking about somebody who thinks it's a big fucking deal to them. I mean, they're not going on and on and on about it because they're a fan of it. You know
Right.
what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. It's a trigger for them. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's an invitation for you to, um, choose to listen or not. And you decide that relationship. Right. The other
Right.
thing I was getting was that where did that go? That thought just left. um, then you were talking about the other individual. You have to decide if you want to respect that or not.
Mhm.
And you also obviously take into account, even with that individual, what you need for you too. It's
Mm.
that place of the balance. You get better and better at that balance of, what do I need? What do they need? What do I need?
Boy,
What do they need? Back and
r-
forth.
you know what I was just thinking as you were saying that? I'm like, I can just hear some people thinking to themselves, God, do I really got to start thinking all the time like that? I mean,
No,
thinking period. Do it's too much? It's too much
you
thinking to go
feel
on.
it.
You guys thinking them, but you
You
feel it,
feel it.
right? You may have to. Hey, you may have to bite the bullet a couple times and use that technique and think it through a few times. But it isn't going to take fucking long at all, if even one
Yeah.
time, where you're going to be able to feel your way through these situations. And
Right.
I mean, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. You know.
already. But it isn't something you're going to have to go get a degree to figure out. Okay, this is an
No.
intimate felt thing. This is through consciousness. And remember, I said earlier about awareness. Consciousness is also the key, or it's also the tool for these suckers to stop guessing. Just you're feeling,
Yeah.
and that doesn't mean some played out slogan like in the '70s. Oh, if it feels good, do it. Well, I mean, I can think of a few things that feel good, but I mean, it's not really productive. But it's a consciousness of doing it. Is it for okay? Is what you're going to do that makes you feel good for your overall betterment?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And that
It-
was the other thing I was getting to was the feelings. And we've been here before, but it's like those were negated before. And to me, the feelings and the emotions, that's part of the heart. That's part of this expansion. You about actually choosing to listen and tap in to how you feel about something, to how it affects you, and to how it affects others, and to kind of consciously decide, how do I want to be with this? But it's all from a feeling place. It's all of how you're feeling. And some days you're going to be really good with it. And some days you're going to be like, I can barely take this. I could feel it within myself. So that means that I probably shouldn't do this because that's going to piss me off. That I'm okay if they do this, but I can't deal with this. So maybe I need to do this instead. It's knowing your level of I'm hearing rawness actually within me. Where you are on certain days, even when you're at a really awesome place and they're not. Whether it's a relationship or your boss or the person
yeah.
at the 7-Eleven down the street, you know,
Just give me my Slurpee, motherfucker, and shut up. No, I mean, I guess we get it ourselves. Yeah, I'm old enough to remember when they did it behind the counter for you. They'd have to, they didn't. There was none of that self-serve shit. But
wow,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, exactly. And you know what? I would encourage it. That's kind of a challenge, like what the steps Carolyn just went through. I would encourage anybody to think that through. I had a counselor one time tell me, when you make a decision in life, anything that involves anybody else, or really yourself too, how's it going to affect you 5 minutes from now, 5 hours from now, 5 days from now, 5 months from now, right? And it's true. How is it going to affect your life? What you're going to do, and you could even implement that into what you're going to say to somebody. And I know I sound like I'm telling people, goddamn, we got to have a manual to go have a conversation now. No, man, I'm just saying, have an attitude like, and even if you are annoyed by that person, either get the hell out of the situation as soon as possible, and if
yep,
you got to deal with it for a few minutes, right, bite your goddamn tongue, man. I mean, that doesn't mean hide what you have to say, but there's a time and a place for everything. Make sure if you're going to go there with them, you're alone, and you're going to put it in a way that it's an empathetic, concerning matter, and not oh well, this is bullshit. When are you going to get over it? Fuck. I mean, I had this happen to me in the war. I was shot 55 times, and I had a bad heroin habit, but once I got home, I quit right away, and my body healed completely up, and so I have no clue what you're going through. You don't need to get into a storytelling situation where you tell, if it's going to be like well, I had this happen. Well, you should have been me. You lost one leg, I lost both. It doesn't, yeah, right. It doesn't have to be like that, and nor should it be, because the subject, more than likely, you were not asked about it, and that it wasn't pertaining to you per se, except for the fact that
Yep.
you're annoyed because you have to hear about it, maybe.
It helps
You
us
know?
or hurts us. Yes, babe. Hey, my babe just said everything we eat either helps us or hurts us. You could spread that beyond what we
Well,
eat,
that's
babe. You
why
could
I've been a
say
vegetarian for 15 years. I
everything
don't
we
eat
say.
dead things, but yeah. Yeah, it does. He's right though. You are what, we'll get off on that. That's another subject. You are
Yes.
what you eat. Yeah, you really are what you eat. And I mean, but that's why I've been a vegetarian for 15 years. I'm not preaching to anybody who's not, but I mean, I just don't, I look at it, I mean, to me, it's like cannibalism, but we'll drop it at that. I
So
know,
I
drop it at that. We'll just drop it at that. Hey, Carolyn, you're a real piece of work. That we'll just drop it at that, though. Yeah, I don't need anything. Yeah, no, you know what I mean. But it is. That's my personal choice, and yeah, I can go off on, it, but this ain't the time and the place to do it.
no, it's the thing I'm gonna say is maybe even the bottom line is with the sensitivity that the more that you allow the shifts to happen within you that are the natural flow for you, they might go against the external stuff, but
Mm-hmm,
for you,
mm-hmm,
the more that you allow that for you, the more that
mm-hmm.
you are moving basically into your divine alignment. And the more that you do that, you are constantly, no, I don't like the word constantly. You are, when you
Well,
are
we've been,
presented with situations that
yeah.
might stress you or they could push you over the edge, you are in that conversation within yourself where you're like, is it worth my peace? When you become more sensitive, you're
Mm-hmm.
asking that question within yourself, whether it's conscious, like you're asking it, or it's just an energy. Is this worth my peace? Is this
There
worth
you
me
go. That's
stepping
another.
into?
That's a big factor in this too. Well, yeah, right. You get more in touch with when it's time to kind of break away a little bit. When it's
Yep.
time to is this affecting you? You don't have to be. You don't have to in the process though. Before that, you don't have to tell the person off or anything. Before that, you can
No,
just kind of you know um
you can walk away. Like
fade
the
away.
analogy. Remember
Right.
the analogy I gave? My guides gave this to me a while ago, which is somebody comes up to you and they want to argue with you, and there's nothing physical. It's all these words and this energy. You don't have to argue with them. You can look at
No.
them and be like, or you could just
Yeah, you
not
can
say
just
a
walk
thing.
away. Yeah,
Yeah,
and or if you're
they're
forced
in
in a
their own
situation,
vortex.
yeah, you can they're in their own vortex, and then
They're
you don't
spinning.
have to say, you can give off the attitude like, hey, I'm not having it.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Or you
I'm good.
just
I'm just not having it. But you got to stay strength in your mind. Your mind is power. When you're in a situation like that, you got to tell yourself, you know what? Hey, and just be like, whatever. But don't
yep.
do it in a way that would be looking like it's intentionally antagonizing him. Just say, hey, yeah, okay, sure, fine, yep. Hey, man,
You
you got it, brother.
not my monkey, not my circus. You're just there in a
Yeah,
place, and
yeah.
you've
It's
done
a
something that
difference if they're
apparently triggered them. What's that,
right.
Larry?
It's a difference, if you're in that situation, they're bitching, they're just venting, but it's not attacking you or really bitching about
Right.
anybody's name in general. Okay, it's great to lend an ear to that sometimes because people need to do that, get shit off their chest. But if it starts coming up where every third thought is something you've done wrong in your life. Well, Carolyn, you did this. Well, Carolyn, you stayed out late one time in 1985 when you should have been home and when you were in high school, but you probably did. But we won't
But
get into
see,
your high school career.
even in that, Larry, even in that, you don't have to engage because this
No.
is all their own projections. Some of it
Yeah.
might be true. Some of it also might be
Yeah,
selective memory. right?
Yeah, exactly. Either they're telling you something you obviously fucking know because happened, or they didn't and they're exaggerating. Whatever, either way, it's not an avenue you need to go down.
No, you don't have to engage. It's like it's not worth your peace. It's not worth your time, and there's no judgment on them because we all get in those places, but it's like, nah, I'm good. You just give them their space. I'm good. Walk away, do the thing you were saying, Larry. That's yeah.
Did you ever find yourself when you were younger, though, in a mode when you maybe encountered that where okay, well, you got into mode where like, well, I got a few
Oh
things to
yeah.
say to you. You did it. You go, let me tell you something, mofo. I mean, you know what I mean, though. It's easy. So I think that's the last kind of hurdle for a lot of people to break is that once you start being really aware, right? But then that happens, and you're like, oh yeah, well, hey, look, but in sometimes, most of the time, at that point, it's very valid what you're saying, but but then you realize, okay, you're just feeding into it, and it's going to go round, like Pink Floyd said, and us, them, and round and round and round we go.
Round and round.
It's just
I mean,
round
yeah,
and
I've
round
been
and
there.
round
I've
endlessly.
I've been there. I've been there even recently. It's like, yeah, it's just not. It's not worth it. You know.
Yeah,
I
no,
I know. I know I'm in a good place right now. That person's not. I'm not responsible for them not being in a good place. I'd send them
mm-hmm,
love. Because they're
mm-hmm,
obviously put themselves in a pretty awful place. There's nothing I can
yeah,
do, and I don't deserve to be attacked. I'm not responsible for this, and have a good life. Or we're good.
yeah. I
I'm gonna
mean,
go over to
yeah,
this
I
part of the
mean,
house, or
yeah, if it's that bad, honestly, if it's that bad where it was warranted what they were saying, then to me, it would almost be on the level, whatever it was, of a fucking police matter. To me, it's so ridiculous, right? I mean, if it warranted the level of fucking that kind of shit, I mean, it's this, we're talking, to me, it'd have to be something that's almost a crime to even validate even saying any kind of nonsense like that to people, right?
to me it depends
Well,
on
it would depend, but a lot of the time, I think.
because there's a point reached when you are so aware of your triggers. You're that sensitive that your triggers. And the person's engaging you, and you can feel
Hmm.
that you're being triggered, but you may not express it, right?
Hmm.
You're like, oh, I don't like that. Oh, I don't like that. Why did that hurt? Oh boy. And that's a place where you can still not react in a place of like anger or whatever, because even they're trying to trigger you is their own crap. You're the one who's choosing to
Hmm.
swallow the poison, right? So you can react and you can attack, but when you attack, you're really not going to be attacking them. You're going to be taking that angst within you that's been stirred and
Yeah, because they're
regurgitating
not
it
gonna.
onto them.
And the ironic thing about that is that they're not gonna fucking get it anyway, right? They're
Yep,
not
they're
gonna
not.
say. I mean, I have never seen a situation where they go all of a sudden, oh wow, you're so right. I did. If they might admit it, they'll say, well, but you, yeah, but I didn't, but you did, and it wasn't as bad as what you did, and the I but game.
It's
Yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
that's the maybe that's one of the greatest gifts, is that the more that you do that work, the more sensitive you become, which is basically another way of saying that is the deeper self-love you give yourself, which is basically opening to what you give the world, right?
Mm,
Then you have this
good. Eric just
deliberate
brought up a good. Babe just got brought up a
deliberate
good point. Go ahead.
okay, hold on, but you have this you're on your trigger. And you know how you need to be treating yourself,
Yeah.
on that day, on any day, with the way the energy's reacting within you. And you're just like, yeah, I'm good. And you give yourself what you need, and you can, pivot that per day for you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where it starts, is that you're feeding you, and then you're good. You go out and yeah, or you reground when you need to, right? What were you
Yeah.
going to say, Larry?
Oh, Eric messaged in with, this is hey, I've never thought of this shit, but like repeat back to them if you were like stuck and forced to be in a situation with them, you couldn't repeat back to them what they said in some scenarios, really seriously repeat it back to them in kind of the same kind
Yeah.
of tone that they told you, or one that's maybe a tone tad calmer that they're gonna hear you say. right? And it'll throw them for a
Right.
loop. At the very least, I have to think that it would throw them for a, it stop them in their tracks. They'd be like,
Right.
okay, yeah, you're right, I'm wrong. You're right, I'm wrong. No, you're right. You're right. Yeah, it throw them for a loop like that. They'd be like, you start
It would
arguing
break
their
their
point to
pattern.
them.
It break their
Yeah.
pattern. And when you break
It,
somebody's pattern and they're in
yeah.
an unconscious pattern, which is what an argument is, it's unconscious, right? The person's throwing things out because they've been triggered. When you break that pattern,
Yeah.
oh, there they go again.
No, there you went. Oh yeah, isn't that funny? This is what Carolyn guides really. They're bored in the cosmos. They watch the show and
I
they
don't
know
know
when it's
what that.
time to. Every
Oh, there we
time
go. Yep.
they know when it's
Wow.
time to start hitting that dub. I think Carolyn. I honestly think we joke, but I think we should start. I think we should really start listening to them with this.
Yes, I know. And when they did that just now, that you and I both know that means begin to wrap it up.
Wrap it up. I'll take
Wrap it
it.
up.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Is there any last, but Carolyn, is there any, I mean, I want you to be able to make every point that you wanted to make. Is there anything else you want to touch on about this issue about, we could just tell everybody, hey, start being more sensitive. That's kind of a lame thing to say too, because there you go again with one-liner cliches unless it's meant with energy.
There's some key points that I felt compelled to like circle because to me these are things that need to be pondered or offered to be pondered within the souls watching or listening this now or any now that are drawn to this at any level of inner work is one that I said beginning of the podcast is what does it mean to soften? What does it mean to soften for you in your reality? What does it mean to soften for you with the way you treat yourself? How would that change your world? How would that change you? How would that change your reality? How would that change the way that you react to things and perceive things, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I saw that, babe. You're an
Yeah,
asshole, babe.
yeah. Could I get my ass kicked for that? Yeah, but I feel like my dad's on the phone right now with his 85-year-old sister who looks like she's 55. They're all Scandinavian, blonde hair, blue eyed, and they can talk. It's funny. They can talk all day about nothing. About the guy next door who had a fucking gallon of milk he was walking in with, or something. But teach their own. But so yeah, so that kind of threw us for a loop there.
Yeah, I see that, babe.
Are you guys?
I've got
Don't
a
be gun
couple
shy.
more.
Make another point. Yeah, go ahead.
I do. And the other one that I'd mentioned that to me I thought was very powerful was, when I got it was the pain gets old, with the trauma. So many
Mm-hmm.
souls that are in trauma or recognizing that and they're hurting.
Mm-hmm.
The point of the healing, the point of choosing yourself first is what I'm hearing, but that isn't from a
Mm-hmm.
place of selfishness. That's from a place of genuinely accepting you and everything you've gone through, which is work, which is either counseling, which is either, your inner work for you, or you're getting external counseling, or you're talking with a good friend and
Yeah.
you've got a process going. This isn't a one-time thing. At some point, you'll choose this lifetime or the next, because the pain gets old. It gets old to learn through the pain. There really is a point where when you've done enough inner work and you've become more sensitive to yourself, you choose joy. You choose to learn through joy rather than shock and anger and sadness and fear. That
Yeah.
happens when you've gotten used to like the inner conversation within you and the love that you give out to your world, which happens automatically. And then the last point I made, which to me is like the key point, which is it worth your peace?
Mm-hmm.
That's about
Oh yeah.
sensitivity. It's like that thing happening. Is it worth your peace? You've done a lot of work to get to that place where you are. Is it worth your
Right.
peace? And what you'll begin to learn is, if you're new to the awareness of you and that healing conversation, well, you're probably going to find a lot of external triggers because you still have a lot of internal triggers, internal work. And the gift ultimately is that those external triggers are revealing to you I'm getting guided to say whether those triggers are events or they're a person, something said
Mm-hmm.
to you. the gift in that is that you can see where those wounds are more easily from those triggers,
Mhm.
right?
There's another
And
phase of
so
it. Yeah, there's another
yeah, the
phase of
bottom
it.
line, is it worth your peace? You know?
Mhm.
So yeah, I feel like
But
we did pretty good.
I
Yeah,
think
go
we
on,
did
Larry.
okay. Yeah, we did okay. I was going to say, yeah, and it just opens up another layer to start covering, right? And then you start
Yeah,
seeing this and this and this and this, and it seems like a
right.
big mountain. But then eventually you'll realize that you can address all of them in the same kind of way and knock these issues out, right? So to speak. I don't know what I just said, but hopefully it, was something coherent in the English language. Um, Carolyn Lanier Roberts, deep in the heart of Texas, in the great, beautiful, big state where everything is bigger in Texas, except for I heard there's one thing that's not, but we won't get into that. Um, the stars at night are so big and bright down there, and it's just such an open-minded area. And I want you to use your open mind to tell everybody where they can find you on the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful world of the wonderful, nice, loving world of social media platforms. Where in the world?
Okay. Yes. Hi. I'm Carolyn&Larry Roberts. You can find me on Facebook as Carolyn&Larry Roberts, and everything I share on that page is public. It's public. Everything. Then I've got another page on Facebook is Allowing the Light. That's my mission business page. And I have YouTube channels which I'm merging right now. I've got both though. And they're not quite active, but they exist. One is Carolyn Lanier Roberts in parentheses is Allowing the Light, and the other is, I think it's just Allowing the Light, right, Larry? I think that's right.
Yeah, I think that's right too. It's just allowing the light, but I wouldn't downplay them like that. I would encourage people to check them out because the one that is inaccessible right now to her because password issues, that kind of shit, whatever. There's
Yeah.
some really good few minute, short minute talks on there that really hit a lot of points home good and are really passionate. So I would encourage everybody to check it out. I mean, some wisdom that's put out there is for the ages. It doesn't matter whether she said it a year ago or 10 years ago or 20, four score and 25 quintillion years ago. It is all, because we know,
It
she's been
serves.
around the earth that long. But it's very valid for people to hear that, right? And
Okay.
what's going on
Yeah.
though, real quick? I want to know what's going on with your Etsy store though. Is everything going cool with that? Is it?
Okay. I have an
Yeah.
Etsy store. It's there. My Etsy store is Allowing the Light, and as I say on every podcast, Etsy is a labyrinth. So the way to find me on Etsy is in the search. You're gonna put party supplies, and then you could put Allowing the Light as a separate thing on that line,
Mhm.
and I will be in the top 4 searches. See, that's how big Etsy is. And
Okay. Wow.
that's where I sell my blessing picks, which are my my light language infused images and my channeled words. And those are all over my Instagram. That I do Instagram. Instagram is Allowing underscore light. They're all there and on my other pages too. Okay, and then the last thing is that I offer soul sessions, which is where I work with you to connect with the conversation of the heart that is within you. And what I do, one of the things I do is that I connect with the library of the heart, which many would call the Akash, but it is the Akash within me. However, my goal isn't about connecting to what you were at that time.
Hmm.
I'm more guided towards I connect with the feelings you experienced and those emotions because those are
Yeah.
energy that travel through time, and they are stamps on this lifetime now, and they shape
Yep.
your reality.
We're gonna
And
do a
they are
show about
also
that one day, though.
what's that, Larry?
We're gonna do a show about that one day about what you're saying about connecting to the now and not getting hung up on the fact that you were Thoth or Roth or fucking Zeus or
Yeah,
who's
it's
next time, right?
those that if those emotions, those energies, those feelings, and the way that you handle them are stamps that you've learned from your family, your ancestry, your DNA. And so it may or may not serve you. Obviously, if you're coming to me, it probably isn't serving you. But and so I work with that. I work with that. And then the other thing is that, I work with your higher self and you for any other issues you're addressing. my focus is the heart. And so for me, that's the emotions, that's your feelings, but it's also the balance with the sacred mind. And ultimately, one of the things I haven't said on the podcast, Larry, but it's been popping up to say this,
Yeah.
is that the thing I do naturally, this is who I am, is when I meet a soul, I always see that soul within their highest expression, their highest light. And I hold that image and that energy within me. That's just who I
Mhm.
am. And I
You do
hold
that
that
with
within
anybody you
me.
talk to. Yeah, you do that with
Yeah.
anybody you talk to, and it's
I
apparent.
hold that. I see that that person is that to me, which is, that's, and until and unless they show me something different. And so that is something that I am here to do, is I invite all souls into their highest expression, by that. And they, you know, maybe somebody chooses that or not, but that's what I do. Is I hold that purity for that soul, because to me we are all divine beings, and we are that before anything else happens. And so yeah, that's what I offer in my soul sessions. I can be reached on Facebook, allowing the light, and is that it? Instagram.
Yeah, your
That's it.
Facebook, your timeline, Carolyn and Robertson. I want to say
Thank
real quick
you.
too on her behalf. I've been doing this for about 13 years now. Meeting people in this community, people that offer life coaching, things of that nature. And I've talked to hundreds of people that do it or that try to do it. There's only If you came to me and you asked me to recommend somebody to do an intuitive life coaching job, there's only four names that would come up. I'm not going to say the other three. One of them is Carolyn&Larry Roberts, though, and it would be based on I would, and I'd say you're going to have to figure it out based on which style you might like of theirs and where you're maybe even demographic. Not that it would be online, but demographics, language barriers might be in the issue. But there's only four. She's one of them out of hundreds. So, you couldn't go wrong. I mean, if you're straight up with her, you're gonna get, you're gonna get some results in what you're looking for, at least keying you into where your mind needs to take you to fix the problem. Okay, enough about that. Not that there could be enough about that, but we could do a whole show on what Carolyn does. But if you want to find me, I'll make it simple, because we could be here for another show. And Carolyn knows this. If I told you all the grams and ticks and bops and bips and twitches I'm on, and Twitch, Twitter, tweak, tweak all night, tweak a little longer, all that kind of stuff. I'm on every one of them. Blue sky, purple sky. But I'll get to the point. Rockin' Locken social media outlets on Facebook. That's Rockin' with an E, Rocken, Locken, like my last name, Locken. Okay, Rockin' Larry Locken social media outlets. You can also type it in by the secondary name of that page, which all pages have one if you want to put one. It's the Larry Locken Network. Okay, it'll tell you every group I've ever created on Facebook, every channel I've ever been on. I'd appreciate a like on that page, because I'm about 50 short of 10,000, and I'm not obsessed with numbers, but it would look better. 10,000 looks better than 9,000 versus 9,000 looking better than 6,000. Okay, because you're getting into the other digits. So I'd appreciate somebody liking it. You're not going to get a bunch of dings and notifications from it, because I don't post anything there except for when I'm starting a new venture, like this show. Is on the show's page is on there. That's another thing. Consciousness Conversations. Go to Facebook and like that page. Okay, we're trying to get to 100 followers so we can go live on that particular page. You need 100 versus 50 on YouTube, which I think YouTube should have 100 before you can go
Conscious
live.
Conversations
Okay.
with
Yeah.
Carolyn and Larry.
Yep. Conscious Conversations with Carolyn and Larry, right? And I've got 5 YouTube channels myself. The Larry Locken 1 channel, 2, 3, 4, 5, but they all got handle names to them too that are different. They're Pleiadian related. One of them's Arcturian related. One of them still needs to get 7 more to get 100 subscribers, because I only activated it last year, even though I've had it for 13 years. It's called Pleiadian and Angelic Rainbow Orbs. Larry Locken 4 channel at Pleiadian and Angelic Orbs, and also check that page out on Facebook. Okay, I think I've said everything I need to say. Please tune in next week, Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Central. Or, no, excuse me, 9 a.m. Yeah, boy, I'd really never get up for it then, would I, Carolyn? It's 9 a.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Central, 10 in the Rockies, I guess 12 out east. You go clear to the UK, you add another 8 hours, so it'd be 5 o'clock on the UK, and then in Scandinavian, and as you go further east into Europe, it goes another hour, another hour, another hour. I don't have the fucking time zone map. I'm an American, okay? You ought to be lucky I even know that there's a continent over there, all right? People, seriously, I'm just saying. Okay, Carolyn teaches school, so she knows all this. But I'm telling you, for somebody like me, I shouldn't even know that there. I mean, all these new countries keep popping up over there. Like, I meet people in these groups, people like Hungary and Estonia and Uzbekistan. And I mean, when did all these new countries start coming up?
They're
Anyway,
brand new countries.
yeah, I know. I know all my mind's just swimming with meretricious fallacies, and I just love to think that it is. But we'll be here next week, Thursday. We're going to have another inciting topic. We're just consciousness conversation. We're just trying to spark a thought, and we're not out for the big time. We're out to just change one person's, not to
Right.
change them, but maybe give them food for thought, right?
Seeds.
Reawaken that conversation of the heart, which is Carolyn Leonard's catchphrase, so nobody else better use it unless it's just in a quick conversation. Okay, so that's exactly it. And with that, I'd like to give everybody a big dating game cosmic kiss. And you young people be like, what the hell is he talking about? But da 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 da. All right, Carolyn, I'll be right with you. I love you guys so much, and this has been your
Thank you.
delicious MC. Yeah, with my ace here from Texas, where everything's bigger. Okay, well, almost everything. All right, and we're out. 1 2 1 2. We're out. Carolyn, I'll talk to you in a minute. If I can end this, let's see if I can X out. No, I hit X there now. Okay, now I'm going to end here. I'm going to end on. Okay, all right.